back with another customer FERMAT Friday this week. I'm excited. I got Max Langlois, who is the head of growth at Dose and also the founder and CEO of Hype10, joining me. Max, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Excited to be here.
Amazing. So I think it's best for these conversations, maybe with just kind of like a quick overview of you and maybe a quick overview of Dose, because we're going to be talking about that today. It just makes things a little easier in the conversation if people kind of know like what you sell, kind of what the price point is, so that people can kind of figure out, okay, is what he's saying relevant to me?
Sure. Yeah, it sounds good. I'm the founder and CEO of Hype10. We're a performance marketing agency based in New York City. I'm also fortunate enough to also have kind of a secondary job, which is leading up the acquisition side at a supplement brand called Dose. We sell functional wellness shots. We really like to actually more so say it's like a liquid supplement, which is focused on need-based items. So, for instance, cholesterol, liver, immunity, soreness, and skin. So we have a pretty small assortment of focus in terms of our SKUs, and our price point is at $90 for one-time purchase. And then naturally we have a subscription offer as well, because we are keenly focused on getting people to subscribe on the first order. So yeah, it's a bit about us.
Amazing. And in terms of kind of like who your target market is, so if people are kind of like paying attention, like skewing kind of older, younger, who are you generally going after?
Yeah, generally our age demo is a little bit older. We naturally focus a little bit more heavily on, our hero SKU. And for that particular SKU, which is, liver as well as cholesterol, generally speaking, the percentage of people in the U.S. populace struggle with elevated liver enzyme levels as well as cholesterol issues as they age. It's kind of like a 45-degree angle. If you were to look at the percentage of the population that struggles with those two items, it just naturally increases the propensity to have those issues as you age. What's intriguing is that on the liver side of things, the target addressable market is actually growing, in large part because of the consumption behavior patterns in the US. I think we're all keenly aware that the American diet is not great. And so what that causes is a lot of excess fat to build up around your arteries, which then leads to struggling liver function as well as, issues with cholesterol as well. So right now, our general target demo is like, I would say, 40 years plus. But the percentage of people that struggle with elevated liver enzyme levels, as an example, in people under 18 was never a thing. And over the course of the last 10 years or so, now about like 10% of kids under the age of 18 now have excess liver fat. So we'll see how that develops in decades to come. But for right now, it's predominantly focused on an older demo. And it's agnostic of gender as well.
Gotcha. So low SKU count, around a $90 price point, mostly marketing to an older demo, but that is broadening over time. Where
Yes,
before it was a little bit more narrow. All right. So Max, you are the founder of an agency. You also are sitting in the growth seat for a direct-to-consumer brand. What's kind of like on your mind before we get into maybe like FERMAT and talking about that? Like, what's on your mind right now? Challenges, opportunities as it relates to kind of like the growth and acquisition play for direct-to-consumer?
I mean, I think everyone kind of, what I have to say here is probably very similar to how most others are feeling, in that the traditional toolkit is constantly evolving in this space. And, I'm going to steer towards FERMAT since we're here. But, I think there was 2022 and 2023, it became abundantly clear that the media buying tactics of the past were no longer going to, generate the growth that was desired of brands. And so the focus, squarely turned towards creative and, depending on who you're talking to, a lot of people are, testing loads of content, right? Upwards of 100 pieces of content at scale on a monthly basis and trying to validate different messaging angles and all these different things. Where before, if we're being blunt, in 2018, 2019, and even 2020, we were maybe launching 10, 15 new ads on a monthly basis, right? It was more so optimizing the spend and implementing different tactics from a media buyer's perspective. And so now the way that I see it is kind of the massive awakening of the additional lever on the post-click experience, because it's a lot more scalable naturally relative to an ad unit. Now, when you do find that one winning ad, it can really carry your ad account for 6 months to a year before it really starts to fatigue, and that's amazing. And can have a really profound impact on a business. But if you could unlock 10 to 15% gains in that conversion rate that you're seeing, or unlock 5 to 10% improvement in terms of the percentage that people that are subscribing on your first order, it really changes the unit economics and the potential growth trajectory of your business. So, originally, to add more context to that, I launched the agency in 2020, or 2021 rather. So in 2021, our one service offering was paid media management. And then we had to basically tack on creative starting last year because we recognized that we were losing opportunities to other agencies. And oftentimes our conversations that we were having with our brands on our book of business was kind of capped to a certain degree because we were necessitating them to handle one of the most important pieces of the pie. Yep. And then now, we basically offer landing pages as well. And we work with FERMÁT on a consistent basis across the majority of our brands as well. So yeah, it kind of shows the trajectory in terms of where we're prioritizing our focus over the course of the last couple of years.
I love that. The focusing on creative and basically going from hey, we can maybe have 10 to 100. And something we talk a lot about here is building funnels the same way that you build ads. And the way to win on the ad creative side of things is to constantly be experimenting, building new things, trying things out, and not just, oh, let's change this or change that, but you probably see this a ton too, is okay, let's go after a different value prop. Let's maybe try a different demo. And if you don't actually take it all the way through the funnel and you're just experimenting at the creative level, then you can potentially have it fall off pretty significantly. To your point, getting an extra 10 to 15% out of the post-click experience can be game changing, especially when we know that the life of something that crushes on the creative side, it does have a shelf life. Very rarely can you find an ad that is just going to carry you for, I don't know, let's say more than a quarter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I think one of the things, what I like to say to clients or prospective clients is, when this conversation comes up, it's on average, somebody is spending 4 to 5, potentially top end of the spectrum, 7 seconds interacting with an ad unit. And yet they're spending, the average session duration across our book is probably 1 minute and 45 seconds. And most e-commerce brands out there are spending all of their time and attention and focus on an interaction of 7 seconds and completely ignoring 1 minute and 45 second interaction with their brand and prospective customer. So it seems hyper logical, and it's kind of comical when you phrase it that way, that more people aren't testing landing pages and funnels on a more consistent basis. But yeah, to your point, there's so many different use cases for the FERMÁT, funnel building and PDP buy box experience, where you can validate different messaging angles and test different tactics, that it's become one of our go-tos in terms of an additional tool in the toolbox. And in today's environment, the more tools you have, the better off you're going to be.
I love that. And without sounding super creepy, I was taking a look at kind of what you're doing on the acquisition front over at Dose. And one thing I did notice is you are practicing what you preach here. There's so much variation in terms of where you are sending the post click. I've seen you guys go to PDPs, to custom landers, to FERMÁT, to the homepage. Maybe would you mind giving our listeners kind of how you think about that post click? What makes you send it to one place versus the other? How do you kind of like experiment and decide like, yeah, we're going to keep doing that or we're going to cut that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like one of the notions is that people will kind of direct like take the same ad unit and then direct it to do a redirect test and be like which has a stronger conversion rate, and they're not accounting for the fact that like CPMs and CPCs are also going to be impacted by that post-click experience, because naturally Meta and Google are going to crawl that experience. And so there's kind of this priority and focus on that one particular metric, and it is not painting the full picture, right? And so one of the things that I like to do is think about things from a ad unit perspective relative to that post-click experience. And so a great example of that would be kind of thinking through the lens of how educational is this ad unit? What questions are left with somebody experiencing this ad unit for the first time? And how much education is happening in that post-click experience? The most basic way of thinking about that would be a static ad unit cannot be as educational as a video ad unit, right? It's not possible. And so what we oftentimes find is that a static ad unit generally performs best when it goes to a hyper educational, like listicle landing page, right? So you start to find trends. It's not going to be universal across the board, but like that is one trend in particular. So generally speaking, I like to direct a lot of our static ad units to the listicle landing page that we've structured, set up with you guys as an example. And then, outside of that stuff, we test landing pages just like we test ad units. We have an ABO structure, and anytime that we have a new landing page that we want to validate and test, we don't necessarily do a redirect immediately. We want to get a baseline understanding of how people are interacting with that particular funnel before kind of moving it into that. Okay, so like step one, ABO structure, put some spend behind it, reach a point of statistical significance so that you can start to interpret the results of it. And then the next stage is like, okay, does this warrant redirecting to our current hero top performing page, right? And we've started to leverage y'all's analytics tool in the Forever Links to take that next step when it makes sense, which has provided us with a baseline understanding so that we can actually compare things apples to apples.
Yep.
So that new rollout has been absolutely incredible.
Yeah, what Max is referring to there, Forever Links, for those that don't know, is basically the ability to remap these experiences. So once you have a Forever Link in place, you can change the destination even for an in-market ad. And we've also just recently rolled out Forever Links V2, where you are actually able to split that destination between a FERMAT funnel or FERMAT experience and then kind of like that business as usual. So what Max is saying there is like, hey, let's send some of this to the business as usual funnel and let's have some of this go into the FERMAT funnel and actually be able to have that apples to apples comparison. Because like if you try to test this by having one ad going somewhere, one ad going somewhere else, or even just at like a regular split, like things like you said is not necessarily apples to apples, but we're trying to get as close as we can to that experience.
For sure. Sorry, I should have added that context.
All good, all good. Max, I was wondering if, so you mentioned that listicle, and I actually like, I think what you guys are doing is really smart with like all the additional learning, especially since the product that you guys are selling, like it obviously has a routine component to it. Like you guys are trying to get consumption long term out of this. And I think having that more educational piece to it is like super important. But to some listeners, it might seem a bit kind of like, I don't know, not the way. Like, oh, if I got the click, like I want to try to just move someone to purchase like as quickly as humanly possible. But
Yeah.
with this experience that I'm going to show right now, it's not necessarily that. We have a lot of paths to that, but you're also presenting a lot of information. So I was wondering if we could kind of like go through this and maybe you could kind of give like your thoughts on like, hey, why is this set up this way?
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's do it. And for those that are listening on podcast players, this will also be available on YouTube if you want to see kind of like the walkthrough that Max and I are going to be doing. But I'll do my best to try to give a explanation of everything.
Awesome. Sounds good. So this is basically just a classic listicle, 5 reasons why. We have tested different verbiage above the fold there, trying to go after different value propositions. This is kind of the most on the nose that we could find, and it basically was validated in the bounce rate that we saw from this particular page. So, pretty self-explanatory there. CTA, this is the classic kind of structure that you guys have in place for your listicles. And then as we scroll down, what we see is, I guess I should also reference like the discount that you see that's referenced not only in the announcement bar at the top, but then also in that first CTA that you see above the fold. Both of those are for 25% off, which is our current offer for that of subscription. Naturally, if you're a subscription focused brand, you want to incentivize people to select that option because it really changes the unit economics from an acquisition perspective. Then we have call it a review count, and then we have a couple of different logos here: Pop, Sugar, BevNet, etc. And then we start to actually get into some stuff here to validate that original headline, right? And so, one of the unique parts about this SKU that has been amazing, and whenever you're talking about a supplement, right? If you have clinical studies that actually validate that this thing works, it puts a lot of people at ease. Even when you have those clinicals, you'll still get comments on your ads claiming that this clinical doesn't have enough people in it, or tell me about the research component that went into this, all of this stuff, right? So people have there's a large barrier to entry from a supplement perspective if you can't validate it with the scientific backing. And so we are fortunately in a position where we can, kind of speak to that directly. And so, if you recall, the original headline here is geared towards people who have like elevated liver enzyme levels. And then our clinical first value proposition of that listicle is speaking exactly to our findings from our clinical study, right? So everything is geared towards validating that original headline. So people are moving through that.
I love that. And as we scroll through here, like we keep on referencing that original headline, the clinical studies, ingredient lists. Like I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom for a second, just to give people kind of like the breadth of how much information we have in here. And then we can talk about some of these other things, but like a lot of additional information here. And again, like some people might be thinking, okay, am I taking away from pushing someone to a purchase with this? But if we are trying to build a routine, and like you said, trying to get a subscription, which we'll talk about in a second, like this is necessary information, because if you're going to subscribe to something, it's not going to be a knee-jerk purchase. Like it's going to be a considered purchase. And I love how you guys have structured this. And again, every single one of these CTAs, as I jump through, like at any point, I can jump straight into the PDP. So like as soon as that person has enough information or enough context, they can kind of jump straight into here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think it's also like, it depends on the vertical, right? Not every single product that you're selling is going to necessitate this amount of information and education to a potential customer. But as it relates to a supplement brand like Dose, it's a prerequisite, right? And so, yeah, and what's been amazing as well is the ability on FERMÁT to basically, A/B test different experiences as it relates to this buy box. So if we scroll down, like a lot of the testing that we've done is basically like around these different value propositions that we have, how we have this messaging being featured. And, these are not new tactics, right? This is the CRO 101. But to that end, what's been so awesome for, in the case of FERMÁT is that we can test different small tweaks and adjustments as it relates to this buy box experience and set it up and get it running in a matter of minutes, rather than having to loop in a designer and then having to get our developer to, take a stab at it. And so we can have an idea and then validate that idea in a turnaround time that is, exponentially faster relative to what we were doing in the past. And then we take those learnings as well and can start to apply some of those things to our other landing pages that we have that are more kind of traditional in nature outside of the FERMÁT experience.
Absolutely, absolutely love that. And one thing I like to, as a like user coming through here, all of that information coming to here, having the subscription be the default. But like, I feel like sometimes brands, this is like a, obviously like you're going to have more subscription conversions if this is the default option versus one time. But I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people just kind of like sneakily make it the default option. But like the one thing I love about what you guys have done, like that's not the case. It is the default, but like this is clearly the subscription option with all the benefits listed of subscribing. And obviously, you guys
Yeah.
allow someone to get into a one time purchase, but like this is the happy path of this entire funnel. And honestly, like the majority of your ads as well, focusing on kind of like the routine and building up like a healthy lifestyle.
100%. It's also, I mean, it is validated in our clinical studies, right? So going back to the 5 reasons why somebody should subscribe here, it's, our clinicals took place over the course of 8 weeks. It's not like, you take this supplement once and you're cured of any issues, right? And so we're very upfront, open and honest about that. And, the natural intent of this brand is to try to help people that are struggling with, different health issues. And if they commit to this routine, we can actually support them in that endeavor. And so, exactly right. From a CRO perspective, naturally, we have all the different value propositions and benefits of subscribing. And, when you do toggle on that one time purchase, this is a classic tactic as well. It's like, there are no additional value propositions that populate there. So naturally, we're gearing people towards that. I think like one of the most interesting aspects of leveraging FERMAT, and without, providing too much detail here about like our numbers, but the from day one, the percentage of people that were subscribing from the FERMAT pages was actually higher for first time orders relative to our existing post click experiences that we were leveraging. And naturally, that has a pretty substantial impact in terms of our allowable CAC, right?
Yep.
So we can actually have a higher, CPA that we're seeing from the FERMAT experiences when we're starting to account for the percentage of people that are subscribing because it's coming through at a higher tick rate. You know?
I absolutely love that. And just to go like even further funnel here, like if I am to add this to my bag, like the 25% off that Max is talking about, this is just like ever present all the way through the funnel. Like you're getting 25% off on that subscription all the way
Yeah.
from, I mean, you might reference in the ad, you might not, but as soon as you hit that lander through to the PDP, the card experience, always present, 25% off.
For sure. Yeah, and then naturally, you also see that we do have some upsells here for some of our other SKUs. We got cholesterol and some of the other ones also being featured. So naturally, trying to increase that AOV that we're generating as well.
I love it. Before I jump out of the FERMAT experience here, Max, anything else that you wanted to kind of like highlight from this that you think is a game changer or want to highlight for other people trying to like maximize that post click experience?
I think like reiterating that, you know, you can move so much faster on validating ideas when leveraging FERMAT, and that has been the case with those. So like we have a new offering that we're pushing for Dose, which is basically an access to a wellness coach
Oh, wow.
when you subscribe, right? So that people can actually kind of talk to a coach about their experience using Dose, make sure they're sticking to a routine, talking about things ancillarily related to their health. And so like that's one of the things that we have. It's been in the pipeline for a while, but now it's just about to come to fruition. And shout out to Sarah on y'all's team. I just pinged her via Slack, and she's like, "Cool, like it'll be ready by tomorrow, right?"
Amazing.
So super excited for that one, that variation to come to fruition. And basically, we're just tacking that on as one of the 5 reasons why in that listicle. And then as well, we've updated our card experience to have it be one of the value propositions when you toggle on subscription. And then we are going to basically leverage that A/B redirect test that we were talking about earlier that y'all now have available, and I think you put it as V2 of Forever Links. So yeah, super excited for it.
That's amazing, the coach experience for the subscription side of things. And like we've kind of been hitting on it the entire time we've been talking here, but obviously you're having success like encouraging a subscription, not only through this experience, but just kind of like through everything you're doing on the acquisition and growth front. Any kind of like top tips to other growth marketers that maybe aren't as established in like the subscription side of things and they're trying to build that side of their business? Like any words of wisdom for trying to generate more of those?
It's so product dependent. I think I saw, I'm forgetting his last name, but Taylor, who's the CEO of Common Thread Collective, he was
Oh,
giving a
Taylor
speech today.
Holiday. Yeah.
Holiday, thank you. And he was comparing retention and LTV to like height and weight, and like how you can have a large impact on weight, but can't have a large impact on your height. And I think there are many brands out there that try to kind of push into subscription to improve their unit economics, but their product category does not necessitate subscription, and they're kind of fooling themselves. So I think like honesty, about whether it's a height or weight situation, would be kind of my first take on that. Now, naturally, if you're in the supplement space, then deploying some of these tactics, and also being, if you look at how we communicate with prospective customers across different touch points, whether that be ad units, post-click experiences, email welcome flow, et cetera, it's all geared towards that, right? Everything is about building the routine. So it's not just about having a higher percentage discount. It's about ensuring that every touch point that you're having with the prospective customer is leading them to, take that desired action.
I absolutely love that. The height and weight. I saw that one as well. It's
Awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll link it in the show notes so people can give that one a watch or a listen. But I think you're right. It is very product dependent. And I think like one good piece of advice I got on subscription is like, okay, yes, it's better for the business, but you need to be presenting why it's better for the customer. And I think in a lot of product categories, you're kind of lying to yourself on like the benefit to the customer. And I think maybe it was Eli that told me like, oh, sometimes subscription is just like a handshake. It's like, yeah, you want to commit to this? Like, we want you to commit to this. Like, hey, here's a better price. Like, let's do this. But in the supplement space, like everything you guys are doing, and like, if you go see any of the dose ads, like Max is even in some of them, really hitting on that routine building and like the long-term benefits, like every single touch point. Like this isn't just like let's drive someone to this landing page and then present a subscription. It's like we have put this thought in their head for like in every single touch point that you need to be committing to this long term. And then subscription just seems like it ends up being the happy path towards, well, if this has to be an 8-week thing, then I should subscribe to this because look at all these benefits, especially with the coach. My God, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. I mean, and then what I would also tack on, Alex, is like being mindful to not be so aggressive in your discount for subscription and kind of like lose sight of how that's going to impact naturally your back end LTV. Many different skincare brands over the years have tried to mirror Lumen, if you recall. So Lumen's acquisition strategy for many years was hyper successful for them, but it was basically a free trial, and then you're locked into a subscription. And I think some brands are so focused on getting that to be the case that they don't think about the customer experience after that fact. So they're just trying to acquire as many new customers as possible and hopefully the highest percentage into subscription as possible. But like my personal experience with Lumen, and sorry if anybody who worked on that sees this, but I didn't recognize that I was subscribing when I took that, free trial. I thought, oh, great, this is awesome. I'll just pay like $15 or pay for shipping or whatever it was at the time. And then I was locked into the subscription, and my ability to cancel, I remember, was an absolute hindrance, to my day because I was like calling and emailing and all these different things. So be open and honest, right, with prospective customers, and make sure that they're keenly aware of what's happening, that they are in fact subscribing. Do not try to push them. I mean, one of the other things that I loathe is when you only have the ability to subscribe on a landing page. Like, talk about a way to infuriate people. Better for your unit economics as a business, but let's not try to, fool people or trick people into subscribing just for the benefit of your wallet.
Yeah, that, and I think like absolutely with like how steep of a discount or like how you're getting people into this experience, because like the other thing too is that kind of becomes the like reference point going
Mhm.
forward, right? Like if the subscription doesn't work out, well then like I value this at, well, it was free. Like it was so low friction. Sometimes friction is a good thing. But if it's
100%.
too low friction, like you're just really setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you too heavily discount, then naturally the pixels are going to start to optimize to a different cohort that's not going to serve you well in the long run, right?
Yep.
So if you go to like a 40% discount, right? Like Facebook's going to understand that and be like, cool, like we're going to look for like, steep discount shoppers, right? And naturally their LTV is not going to be as strong relative to when you were offering a 15% discount on your subscription. So you might feel great for that first week because you're like, wow, conversion rate's up and we're getting
That's what I
more
was
new
just about to
customers.
say. Great conversions though. It looks
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. Exactly right.
All right, Max, before I let you go, one question I like to ask all of our customers that come onto the show is how would you describe FERMAT to your counterpart at another brand?
Yeah, I think I've probably regurgitated this a couple times, but I would say it's. Let me see. Let me see how I can phrase this. Okay, so it is a landing page solution that necessitates very little time to validate ideas um, and prove out theories for an e-commerce brand. And landing page friction is, even with different builders that are available, still quite high.
Mhm.
And the user interface is so friendly that it doesn't actually even necessitate your team's help to go and build in there. After basically a 15-minute conversation with one of your team members, you can go and start tinkering yourself, within the platform. So I think that's how I would describe it. I know that you guys are talking a lot about like the funnel um, and how it's not just a landing page; it's also buy box experience. It's also the initiate checkout experience, et cetera. And I think that that's probably the most eloquent way of putting it. Um, it is it is the ability to completely change the post click experience relative to your existing website, and validate different theories that you might have very, very quickly. Hopefully that
I
was a
love that.
decent response.
No, I love that. Like basically what you're saying is, hey, it's a way to own that post click experience, and but not only to own and to customize it, but to be able to experiment like at scale and quickly. I don't want to
100%.
have I don't want to have an idea and have it take a week to put into practice. I want to have an idea and be able to spin that up and not only see is it working, but also be able to apply it.
Yeah, and I mean there are also so many limitations as we well know, with especially like heading into like August 12th checkout extensibility. It's coming to fruition for all Shopify stores. So like, there's a lot that can be done with the FERMAT shop experience that actually is kind of outside of that domain as well.
True. I hadn't even thought about that. We should
Yeah,
talk about getting ready for that one as well.
yeah,
Um, all right, Max, this has been amazing. If anyone wants to follow along with you, you on Twitter, you on LinkedIn, anywhere where people can get in touch.
yeah. I'm a casual poster on Twitter, so come follow me. Max Langlois 3, I believe, is my username. I'll post once every 2 weeks or so with a hot take, and then disappear, and then come back 2 weeks later. So if you want to sign up for that, come on down.
We'll get Max's Twitter into the show notes for everyone, as well as some of the other content that Max was referencing. But as always, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to subscribe to FERMAT Fridays, and we'll see you all next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex.